I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the fairest of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infertata is the only global solution.
Bill Maher just destroyed Rachel Zegler for ruining Disney's Snow White with her woke tantrums and arrogant behavior.
The Snow White version is woke and feminist and progressive.
She had no problem trashing a beloved classic and replacing it with lectures nobody asked for.
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
Ziegler's ridiculous tactics turned a magical fairy tale into a complete and total embarrassment.
So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
Of course, like with everything on the left these days, they just take it too far.
Bill Maher called it exactly what it is. A $200 million dumpster fire. And before you think that's an exaggeration, hold on to your seat because it gets even better. Bill, in the most savage way possible, compared Rachel Zegler to Lord Farquaad from Shrek.
They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the fairest of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
Yep, not Snow White, not a princess, but the annoying little villain from a kid's cartoon. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Zegler strutting around trying to lecture people about feminism looks exactly like Lord Farquaad cosplaying as a Disney princess.
It just doesn't make any sense.
It makes a little bit more sense.
You can gaslight people so easily.
The new Disney boss babe, who is Rachel Zegler, the inverse of happy.
Now, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, guess what? Snow White 2025 dropped to an absolutely embarrassing 2.2 out of 10 on IMDb. I mean, you practically have to try to fail that badly. You could throw together a movie using sock puppets and it would probably rate higher.
If you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business. Thanks.
Put this at Disney, thought they could ride nostalgia straight to the bank. They were banking on a $150 million opening weekend. But reality slapped them in the face because they barely managed to scrape together a humiliating $43 million domestically. Ouch. That's not a flop. That's a full-blown financial obituary. And it wasn't just the movie. It was Rachel Zegler's entitled little attitude that lit the whole thing on fire. She turned fans, who just wanted a little magic and nostalgia, into an angry mob running in the opposite direction.
So the two stars hate each other.
Now, I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
And speaking of Zegler's golden behavior, let's talk about the meltdown that officially crowned her as box office poison. Raised on a healthy diet of TikTok activism, Rachel decided that her first mission would be to trash the 1937 Snow White classic. You know, the movie everyone loves? Yeah. She called it weird and outdated back in 2022.
Snow White gets her name, not from the fairness of her skin, as we obviously know. She gets her name from surviving a snowstorm.
Because clearly the world needed Rachel Zegler, professional TikTok screecher, to tell us the fairy tales we grew up with are offensive now. Thanks for that. Then she proudly announced that the new Snow White wouldn't dream about love anymore.
She's not going to be safe with the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
No, she's dreaming about becoming a leader. Because nothing says happily ever after like a girl boss workshop with no prince, no charm, and no fun.
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
And because Rachel can't help herself, she went full meltdown in 2024, posting a bunch of classy little gems like FT Trump and telling half the country that she hopes they never know peace. Real charming.
President Rachel Zegler also posted, F Trump kinds of posts on social media. She also said that she hoped that Trump supporters, quote, never know peace.
Because when you're starring in a movie that's supposed to be for kids and families, the best thing you can do is go on a public political rant, right? Half of America pretty much tuned her out instantly.
I sat through the whole thing. This was really bad. It was extremely leftist on every political dimension: racial politics, sexual politics, class politics, regime politics. Its narrative was cowardly. It was just awful.
And when people started calling her out, what did she do? She whipped out the world's fakest apology. No one bought it. It had the emotional sincerity of a robot reading off a court-mandated statement.
The movie is doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million, and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
Even Megyn Kelly had enough. She straight up told Disney to fire this brat. And honestly, where's the lie? How do you let someone with the emotional intelligence of a wet sponge be the face of a multi-million-dollar brand? Disney must have been too busy installing more princess dress shops for grown men at the park to notice the catastrophe unfolding right under their noses. Now let's get to the absolute joke of what Disney did to the story. In case you didn't get the memo, romance is officially illegal in Disney's new world.
Every way that Disney changed the story, it changed it for the worse.
They took Snow White, one of the most beloved, sweet fairy tales ever made, and turned it into a giant feminist lecture. Snow White is no longer a kind-hearted girl finding true love. Nope. She's now a full-time bossy nag who marches around giving TED Talks on female empowerment.
Nobody
Who
wants
wants
that.
a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? The outrage.
And the prince? Poor guy. He didn't stand a chance. They turned him into some random background creep who barely gets any screen time. He's not even charming anymore. He's basically there to remind you that men suck. And the evil queen, the iconic villain we all love to hate, Disney watered her down into some vague, boring character fighting over random power struggles. No jealousy over beauty, no dramatic mirror scenes, no juicy drama. Just a bunch of limp dialogue and awkward stares. They managed to strip out every ounce of magic, romance, and fun, and replaced it with a wet blanket of progressive nonsense.
Prince Charming in the traditional fairy tale and in the 1937 movie has been replaced by a common criminal.
Oh, and the music? Don't even get me started on the music. They deleted Someday My Prince Will Come, one of the most iconic songs ever written, and shoved in modern-day dumpster fires like Echo Echo. Yep, you heard that right. Echo Echo. What is that even supposed to mean?
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative.
They say all you have to do to make your wish come true is let it echo, 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 echo.
Your dreams will come true if you just echo them into the void? Good luck with that, Snow White. Even YouTube commenters, who are usually way too nice, were tearing it apart, saying, Snow White's a musical, not a lecture hall. And honestly, that's the most accurate review the movie's going to get.
It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphorical level?
Instead of teamwork, where Snow White used to cook and clean out of kindness and gratitude, we now get Snow White barking orders at everyone. Because apparently the new feminist empowerment model is to boss people around and make everyone else do the work while you stand there acting superior. This isn't empowerment, it's entitlement with a spray tan. Rachel Zegler somehow managed to turn a beloved fairy tale into a 2-hour TED Talk on why men are trash and why true love is for losers.
I think it's fair to say that no one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie. And yet, Christian, you've seen the movie, and it appears that the filmmakers cobbled together enough salvageable material to make the movie itself quite nice.
And the worst part is, you can feel every painful second of it. It's not just bad, it's aggressively bad. It's like they sat down and made a checklist of every single thing fans loved about Snow White and then decided to destroy it point by point. The only magic left in this disaster is how fast Rachel Zegler managed to torch her career before she even hit 25.
So I think that certainly helps her because she's a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her, but again, there is some talent there. It is a familiar story.
Just wait till you hear about the absolute clown show they pulled with the dwarfs. Originally, Disney had a brain cell or two left and planned to cast actual little people actors. You know, like the 7 dwarfs? Crazy idea, right? Casting dwarfs to play dwarfs? Makes sense. But then here comes Peter Dinklage, flexing his Hollywood privilege back in 22, whining about how hiring little people would be backward and offensive.
Why are we doing that? We've hired a Latina actress to be Snow White. That's progressive. But you're going to hire little people to play the dwarfs? That just seems like a step backwards. And then, of course, Disney instantly buckled and said, okay, we're going to add magical creatures.
Disney, being the spineless jellyfish they are, folded immediately. They canceled the roles and decided, oh so brilliantly, to replace the dwarfs with CGI magical creatures. And boy, did those magical creatures look like hot garbage. They seriously looked like rejected extras from Avatar. Leaked pictures hit the internet, and people laughed harder at those weird glowing blobs than they ever laughed at Rachel Zegler's jokes. And what about the dwarfism community?
So the magical creatures are here in the movie. The CGI dwarfs are here in the movie. It works to a degree, but it's certainly going to be a financial hit for Disney, that's for sure.
Oh, they were thrilled. And by thrilled, I mean absolutely furious. Real actors called out Peter Dinklage, basically telling him to shut up and sit down, because while he's sitting on his Game of Thrones money, they're just trying to find work. We just want to work, was the general vibe. But hey, thanks to Disney's epic virtue signaling fail, hundreds of dwarf actors lost the biggest opportunity they'd had since Willy Wonka.
That is totally uplifting and the right way to be woke, Link, when you actually canceled the roles for the marginalized population, because just putting them on screen is somehow racist.
Of course, Disney being Disney thought they could slap a half-baked fix on it. So during the 2024 reshoots, they scrambled around and created diverse bandits, whatever that even means. They weren't dwarfs, they weren't magical creatures, they were just confusing. No one cared. Audiences sat there thinking, who are these people and why do they look like they fell out of a bad Renaissance fair?
And then they couldn't put dwarfs finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work. That many scripts that come down the pike.
No, only 7 of them.
That has, and there's seven dwarf jobs here.
In the end, the 7 dwarfs, the icons of the original story, got replaced by 7 dysfunctional CGI blobs who had less personality than a damp paper towel. Disney didn't just miss the point. They took the point, threw it in a blender, and drank it like a woke smoothie. And while Disney was busy lighting their own legacy on fire, Rachel Zegler was over there doing her best to make sure her PR implosion was just as spectacular.
So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump.
Let's talk about how you lose a career in 10 posts or less. Zegler's Instagram posts from the 2020s aged like spoiled milk. She ranted about how the world was leaning toward a place she didn't want to raise her daughter in. There's no daughter, there's no baby, there's no anything except Rachel sitting on her phone posting cringy Tumblr poetry about politics.
And now she's trying to reinvent herself because there's been so much blowback, and you can only imagine the studio calls about this woman behind the scene. Like, oh my God, we're $242 million in, and our lead actress hates our film.
And because Rachel can't help but insult anyone who likes anything older than she is, she called Disney's 1937 Snow White tacky and outdated. Imagine being handed a role that millions of girls dream about and then spitting on it because it's not feminist enough for your Starbucks politics.
Now you have Rachel Zegler saying, that 1937 movie, that's just, it's tacky, it's weird, we're going to change all that. I mean, what a difference.
But it didn't stop there. Oh no. Rachel decided to bite the very hand that literally made her career by accusing Steven Spielberg's team during her West Side Story press tour of making her prove her Latina heritage. Spielberg, one of the most respected directors alive, and Rachel Zegler, who still can't figure out how to not tank a movie, decided it was a great idea to shade him.
It is a familiar story. I think kids will enjoy it. There are a couple of little scary moments, but nothing that much. But given all the behind-the-scenes mayhem, I expected a Frankenstein's monster where scenes would be stitched together. It's not quite that way.
Meanwhile, Disney execs were having daily heart attacks behind the scenes. Leaked reports said they were absolutely furious, quietly calling Zegler box office poison. And honestly, no lies detected. Even studio insiders started whispering that Hunger Games was getting ready to dump her faster than Snow White tanked at the box office. Nothing official yet, but when Hollywood starts gossiping about you being radioactive, let's just say your career isn't exactly trending upward.
Oh my God, we're $242 million in, and our lead actress hates our film, our actors, our storyline. There's rumors that she and Gal Gadot don't get along either because one's pro-Palestinian, one is pro-Israel.
Of course, the fans were way ahead of Hollywood. They didn't wait for the memo. They just straight up rejected Rachel Zegler and her dumpster fire Snow White reboot. Was an absolute joke. Attendance dropped by a brutal 60% compared to the Cinderella remake. That's not just a little dip. That's Disney face-planting into the pavement while kids and parents walk away shaking their heads. Theaters were ghost towns on opening weekend. No long lines, no buzz, no excited little girls dressed as princesses. Just empty seats and the sad sound of Disney execs sobbing into their soy lattes.
They should have just dropped it like every other steaming pile of dog shit they put on Disney+.
And if you thought that was bad, get this. Disney's stock dropped 3% after the premiere. Wall Street took one look at Rachel Zegler's smug face and said, "Yeah, we're out." Congratulations, Rachel. Not everyone can say they personally contributed to tanking a multi-billion-dollar brand stock price. That's talent.
Or not. We're trying to be extras, or, we're in Johnny Knoxville's Jackass if we're lucky. And so for them, they're like, you're not going to cast us to be inclusive and progressive. But these guys at Disney, they're not that bright. They're not that smart. And we see that because they can't come up with any new IP. Why not write some new movies? You guys sit around, you have billions of dollars.
And it doesn't end there. Walk into any store and look at the Snow White merch aisle. If you can even find it. Dwarf dolls, dresses, toys, all rotting on the shelves like a forgotten clearance bin. Nobody wanted Rachel Zegler's woke Snow White products. You couldn't give them away if you tried. Parents weren't fooled for a second. One furious mom summed it up perfectly online. "My daughter wanted songs, not speeches." Roasted. Parents wanted fairy tales, not feminist rants about how true love is for suckers and cleaning a house is a crime against women.
They're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarfs.
Okay, but what do they call them?
Why
now,
would they
too?
get rid of the dwarves, though?
Magical creatures.
But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures. You actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it.
Rachel Zegler managed to turn one of the most beloved fairy tales of all time into a political manifesto nobody asked for. And the people responded exactly how you'd expect. By staying home, saving their money, and letting Disney take a big fat L. If you ever wondered what a feminist fairy tale looks like, gave us the answer. A steaming pile of boredom wrapped in incoherent slogans and entitled whining. Gone was the sweet Snow White who found joy in small acts of kindness. Nope. Rachel Zegler's empowered version decided she was too good to lift a broom. Instead, she forced the poor dwarfs, who had just spent all day busting their butts, to clean up after her. Nothing says modern woman like making tired workers scrub floors while you sit around feeling smug.
Blight of intersectionality that's spread throughout our entire society, that we can't have a woman holding a broom. Not that Rachel Zegler would know what to do with a broom other than fly on.
And the songs? Disney really outdid themselves there. They went from the catchy, magical "Someday My Prince Will Come" to lyrical masterpieces like "Your voice will echo through and make dreams come true." What does that even mean? Echo what exactly? Echo into the canyon of shattered childhood dreams? Snow White 2025. Somehow made it through multiple script drafts, rewrites, and reshoots, and nobody thought, hey, maybe lyrics should make sense. No, they just handed the microphone to Rachel Zegler and let her mumble feminist slogans to background music.
Argument should have been from Peter Dinklage. There's power of being on TV. There's power of television. And to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there. If the story is offensive, change the story. Don't change the characters.
Then came the awkward dance Disney tried to pull with the prince. They needed him in the story. Because Snow White without a prince is basically just a girl in the woods talking to herself. But they also couldn't let him be important. So he awkwardly drifted in and out of scenes like a confused extra who accidentally wandered onto the wrong set. Rachel made sure to brag in interviews that there was no true love in her Snow White. She said it proudly, like she had just invented a cure for cancer. Except all she did was kill off the entire emotional heart of the story.
They couldn't have dwarves. Do you guys remember?
Yeah,
that?
because Peter Dinklage and all them were talking crap.
So originally they
you have
took
a picture of what the dwarves were supposed to look like?
I can find it, but it was an array. It was the DEI of
DEI
dwarves.
dwarves.
Yep. Well, they had to reshoot the film and use CGI dwarves. There you
So
go.
those guys didn't make it.
Instead of inspiring little girls to dream big, Rachel Zegler managed to inspire mass boredom. Critics didn't even try to sugarcoat it. They straight up called it revisionist Marxist garbage. Because when you turn a fairy tale into a political manifesto, don't be surprised when the audience starts running for the exits. And really, who needs magic and wonder when you can have Snow White giving lectures about inner strength while dwarfs clean her house under duress?
The modern empowered Snow White won't even allow domestic labor carried out by herself. Instead, she orders the dwarves to tidy up themselves, even when they've had a hard day down the mine.
house. But it's so obvious now because of the blight of intersectionality that's spread throughout our entire society.
After detonating the movie and setting her reputation on fire, Rachel Zegler suddenly realized, oh wait, maybe people actually hate me. So in 2025, she scrambled to do some desperate damage control. Suddenly, Miss I Hate Snow White flipped the switch and started gushing about how much she loved the character at a Disney World promo event. Oh, she just loved Snow White so much, you guys. She loved everything about her. She practically teared up saying it. It was beautiful. It was emotional. It was also complete and total nonsense.
It's just a total nightmare for the studios. So now she's trying to sell like, oh, I love Snow White. I love everything about the whole story. Here she is more recently trying to change the messaging. This is actually Wednesday, 39A.
Kids allegedly swarmed her for selfies during this event, which is hilarious because most people wouldn't recognize Rachel Zegler if she was standing next to a giant flashing sign that said, "Hi, I'm Rachel Zegler." The whole thing felt staged, and fans weren't buying it. Online, people roasted her emotional apology as the worst acting performance of her career. And considering her resume, that's saying something.
And then she came out and she said, I apologize. Like, I went too far. But it wasn't sincere.
You could practically see the Disney executives just off camera, holding cue cards and praying she didn't blurt out something about Palestine mid-speech. Meanwhile, people online were comparing her to actual class acts like Drew Barrymore. You know, stars who respected the original material instead of setting it on fire and dancing on the ashes. Drew Barrymore once rebooted Charlie's Angels, and even though the original was cheesy as hell, she spoke lovingly about it. She didn't sit there trashing the people who came before her. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler acted like she was too cool for a Disney classic. Like she was some Hollywood veteran whose opinion mattered.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Hi. This is beautiful. You look lovely.
At this point, everyone watching knew the truth. Rachel's career was wobbling like a drunk flamingo, and if she didn't learn to shut her mouth fast, it was going to collapse completely. But let's be real. Learning to shut up has never exactly been her strong suit. Disney handed Rachel Zegler a golden opportunity, something most actresses would literally sell their soul for. And what did she do with it? She nuked it with arrogance, entitlement, and enough woke politics to make even hardcore activists cringe. It exploded into a $242 million lesson in what not to do when you're given a beloved classic. Every single thing that could go wrong went wrong. And Rachel was standing right in the middle of the wreckage, holding the match.
Thank you so much for being here. And to see this is really emotional for me, so I'm going to try to not do that. I love her, and her superpower is her heart. It's nothing supernatural. It's something that all of us have.
Fans fled like their lives depended on it. Parents didn't want to take their kids. Little girls didn't want the dolls. Grown-ups didn't want the merch. Theater seats were empty. The box office was a graveyard, and even Wall Street noticed. Disney's stock took a 3% hit, and let's just say that when money people start panicking, you know it's bad. And poor Rachel. In trying so hard to shove her modern vision down everyone's throats, she managed to kill not only Snow White, but probably her own leading lady career before it even really started. Hollywood moves fast, and no one's lining up to cast the actress who publicly trashed her own movie, her own fans, and her own boss.
Snow White is the fairest of them all because she has these communist sensibilities to share all resources with the farmers that till the land, and she got those sensibilities from her mother and her father.
So here lies Rachel Zegler's fairy tale, dead, buried, and unmourned. She went from trying to be the fairest of them all to becoming the biggest flop of them all. No prince is coming to save her. No magic mirror is going to fix this one. And no amount of fake tears at Disney World is going to put her career back together. If you enjoyed watching Rachel's fairy tale crash and burn, hit that subscribe button for more brutal takedowns.